Cyril Ramaphosa gets inaugurated as the president of the 7th administration of Democratic South Africa tomorrow, and then he has as long as he wants to take to announce his cabinet. Political writer and analyst Richard Calland joins us now. Richard, good afternoon. How delicate an eggshell dance is this that he's engaged with?
Good afternoon, John. Well, I think cabinet choices are always delicate. They're always a real test of political judgment. In some senses, they're the most important thing a head of state ever does, because once he or she has selected his or her cabinet, then you kind of put in place a whole bunch of either opportunities or risks. And the political judgment exercise this time, of course, is even more profoundly interesting as well as enticing the difficult for him, because he has to bring new people into government for the first time. And I think one of the things he'll have to balance is the extent to which he is willing to sacrifice space for patronage within his own party, with, on the other hand, the need to honour not just the letter but the spirit of the agreement that's been struck with other parties, most particularly the DA.
Yeah, I mean, previously he had to sort of balance the interests of the different factions of the ANC with the alliance partners, COSATU and the SACP. Now he's got all of that, plus the DA and the IFP and the Patriotic Alliance and Gayton McKenzie. Finally saying, look, I'm not going to throw my toys out of the cot if I don't get police or home affairs, both of which I urgently want, and the good party. So, you know, and can he do that without expanding the cabinet rather than reducing it, which he's constantly promising to do?
Well, I'd be astonished, John, if he was to reduce the size of cabinets at this point, because for the reasons you've just given, he's got to fit a lot of pegs for the various slots, and some of those pegs might be quite square. Maybe in for some prizes. I don't think anyone in this so-called government of national unity should be certain that they will be rewarded to the extent that they expect. There are lots of deputy minister positions to fill, for example, and it may be that some of the smaller parties will have to be satisfied with that. What's clear from the statement of intent, the agreement that was published on Friday, is that the president's prerogative to choose his cabinet is untouched. That there is very little kind of prescription on who gets what, or even how many. There's a broad agreement that the cabinet should broadly reflect the number of seats in Parliament, but it says broadly, and I think there's plenty of wiggle room for the president if he chooses to wiggle.
In this administration and in the couple of years that Cyril Ramaphosa had finishing Jacob Zuma's term, there were quite a lot of lame duck ministers. Can he afford to keep somebody who has proven themselves to be a lame duck minister on simply because that person needs to be kept on side, or that person's faction needs to be kept on side?
Well, I think having made what is no doubt quite a bold step in terms of reaching this agreement with the DA and the IFP, and no doubt upsetting quite a lot of people in the ANC, I think he'll be wanting to avoid creating further discontent within the broad ANC family. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more hedging in that respect. I think that would be reasonable to expect. On the other hand, he might take the view that here's an opportunity to get rid of some of the dead wood, to clear some space, to solve some awkward kind of political contradictions in the camp from our side. National unity is so-called, to use the coalition agreement as a justification for doing so. In other words, to hide behind it. Coalitions often do that. Coalitions often give a leader an opportunity to say, well, of course, I would like to do it this. I have to balance that now with the partners, and their partners must be taken seriously, otherwise the government might fall.
And Richard, I mean, how complicating a factor do you think it might be? The EFF's letter to the Speaker immediately Ramaphosa was elected as president, asking for another investigation into the Phala matter, complicating for Ramaphosa and complicating for his GNU allies. The DA already saying that we're not interested in a new inquiry unless new evidence has been produced. I mean, does it strike you as something of a political masterstroke is too strong a word, but something a couple of degrees down from a masterstroke for the EFF to raise it this early in this way?
Well, I thought it was a stunt to try and weaken Ramaphosa at a moment of apparent triumph for him. And the EFF, having kind of lost out in this process and weakened by the election result, I think we're trying to reach for straws to give comfort to their supporters and even their backbenchers. I don't think it'll get anywhere. Constitutionally, it's been dealt with by Parliament. I think there would have to be new evidence, first of all. And secondly, I think the coalition partners have made it pretty clear they're absolutely not interested in that. Helen Ziller was very forthright in the interview she gave yesterday in that respect.
And how would you characterize where we are now? I know that you do a lot of consulting and speak to people who are in the investment community and so on. How optimistic would be the message that you would give them if you were going to a boardroom gathering on your way now to a boardroom gathering? How optimistic would you be in your conversation with them?
Well, John, that's exactly where I am going right now. And what I shall say to the board I'm speaking to over dinner this evening is, yes, this is a very promising moment. And there is the promise of a government that is more competent, that is less corrupt, that's more efficient, and that the various partners will bring out the best in the other. But people should not think that this is a done deal, that there are not many potholes in the road. Forgive me, I'm driving in Johannesburg right now. And so those potholes are that coalition agreements can fall apart. We've got a broad statement of intent at the moment. The cabinet Lekotla, the strategy session that must follow quickly once the cabinet is appointed, will need to iron out as many details as possible. It will have to be very clear about red line issues from both sides or all sides, and it will have to try and agree a clear program of action. For business, it's an opportunity not just to sort of ride the wave of optimism, but also to come forward with clear ideas, constructive ideas for this new government, because this government will want not to be like Bambi on ice. It will want to find its feet quickly, show that it's competent, show that it can work together, and show that the partners in this new arrangement have that capability of working together in an effective fashion. And of course, to kind of slay the idea that this will be a coalition like some of the ones we've seen at local government level, which have been disastrous and disastrously unstable.
Thank you very, very much indeed, Professor Richard Calland, writer and analyst.